Let me show you something most men will never admit. You're patient when she changes plans last minute. You're understanding when she goes cold for 3 days. You're accommodating when she makes unreasonable demands. You think you're passing her tests. But here's what's really happening. Every time you accommodate her reality, you're teaching her that yours doesn't exist. Have you noticed how the more agreeable you are, the more she tests you? How your tolerance generates more boundary violations instead of gratitude? Why does being the good guy make her pull away? Why does your patience feel like weakness? Why are you constantly reacting to her world instead of living in yours? You think frame control is about winning arguments, about being louder, more logical, more convincing. You think if you can just explain yourself clearly enough, she'll understand and stop testing. But here's the truth. The moment you have to verbally defend your frame, you've already lost it. Frame control isn't something you do when she tests you. It's something you are when she's not testing you. It's the reality you live in before she ever enters it. It's not your defense. It's your declaration. Think about the last time she tested you. Did you defend your position? Did you feel that knot in your stomach, hoping she'd see your point? That knot is the feeling of operating in her frame while thinking you're defending yours. Why does it feel like you're always on trial? Why are you exhausted from proving you deserve respect? Here's the pattern. She's late, no apology. You accommodate. She cancels plans. You understand. She goes silent for days. You give space. And with each accommodation, the tests get bigger. Her respect gets smaller. Your investment generates no return. The way being accommodating didn't make you attractive, it made you invisible. There's one skill that changes everything. One psychological protocol that makes her stop testing you. Not because you passed her tests, but because you made the tests irrelevant. Here it is. Frame control is not frame defense. And the fact that you are defending it proves it is already broken. That's the shift. That's where everything changes. Most men spend their entire dating life defending a frame they never actually built. And she feels it. She knows that frame is weak, reactive, performance-based. She's not looking for a man who can defend. She's looking for a man who doesn't have to. Now let me show you exactly what that means. But first, we need to destroy the lie you've been living. Let me show you what most people never see about frame control. You've been taught that frame control is a performance. It's the clever comeback, the firm boundary statement, the moment you put your foot down. That's not frame control. That's frame defense. Listen to this. Frame control is a silent protocol. It is not what you say. It is what you tolerate. Why have you been trying to convince her to respect you? Why have you been explaining why her behavior is unacceptable? Why have you been defending your right to have standards? Because you believed frame control was external, something you performed to win her agreement. But it's internal. It's the reality you live in, regardless of whether she agrees with it. Think about someone with real authority, a judge, a CEO, a master in his craft. Do they argue for their authority? Do they explain why you should respect them? No. Their authority is self-evident. It's what they tolerate. It's what they allow in their presence. That's frame control. And if you want to understand how to build it, you need to understand the 3 pillars of an immovable frame. Pillar 1, non-contingency. Your reality does not depend on her presence or approval. If she leaves, your life continues without disruption. This is the signal of self-sufficiency. This is status. Pillar 2, zero defense. A strong frame never argues, explains, or justifies itself. The moment you feel the need to defend your boundary, you have already collapsed back into her frame. Your frame requires zero defense because it's not built on her agreement, it's built on your standards. Pillar 3, absolute consistency. Your frame is the same whether she's testing you or not, whether she's present or absent, whether she validates you or rejects you. A frame that bends for a pretty face or a threat is not a frame, it's a performance. Consistency is the proof of status. These 3 pillars are not abstract philosophy, they're tactical requirements. Without non-contingency, you're still emotionally dependent. Without zero defense, you signal weakness the moment pressure hits. Without absolute consistency, she has evidence that your frame is negotiable. Now here's what's really happening when she tests you. She's running a diagnostic, an unconscious, high-stakes screening process, not for commitment, not for niceness, for frame strength. She's measuring whether you live in your reality or whether you'll abandon it to accommodate hers. What does it signal when you rearrange your entire schedule because she changed plans last minute? What does it communicate when you accept disrespect without consequence? It tells her that no one else is competing for your time, that your reality is so weak it bends to anyone who applies pressure, that your standards are negotiable. And negotiable standards are the hallmark of low status. Think about that. When you accommodate boundary violations, you're not being mature or secure. You're teaching her that your standards are for sale, that they have a price, that the right pressure point will make you abandon them. Why does the man who walks away from disrespect become more attractive? Why does indifference generate more interest than investment? Because these behaviors signal something her unconscious is scanning for: a man who lives in a fixed reality, a man whose frame doesn't require her validation, a man of status. But here's what's darker. Here's what most people miss about why her testing exists at all. Here's the truth you don't want to hear, but it's the truth that will set you free. Her tests aren't about you. They're her survival mechanism scanning for one thing. Can she feel safe with this man? She cannot feel safe with a man whose frame she can break. Think about that. Really let it land. Throughout human history, a man without frame was a man without status, without the ability to protect. A man who could be easily manipulated was a man who would be manipulated. And a woman attached to him inherited that vulnerability. So she's screening for one thing. Does he have a frame she can trust? Let me show you what this looks like. She texts you at 11 p.m., come over. The frameless man drops everything, drives across town, demonstrates that his time has no value, that his reality, maybe he was reading, working out, sleeping, is less important than her spontaneous desire. The man with frame? He responds from his reality. I'm winding down for the night. Let's plan something tomorrow. Simple, direct. From his frame, not a defense of it. She pushes back. Wow, I guess you're not that interested. This is where most men collapse. It feels like he's losing her, but here's what's actually happening. She's escalating the test, increasing pressure to see if his frame is solid or just performance. The frameless man backpedals immediately. No, I didn't mean it like that. I can come over if you want. The man with frame, he doesn't defend. He doesn't argue. He might not even respond. Why is silence more powerful than explanation? Why does non-reaction communicate more strength than justification? Because his frame doesn't require her agreement to exist. Real authority doesn't argue for itself. Real standards don't negotiate. The man with frame is indifferent to her disapproval because his reality isn't contingent on her approval. And here's what happens next. If she adjusts, if she says, okay, how about tomorrow at 7, something shifts. She's entered his frame. She's living in his reality. And her nervous system registers relief. Why? Because she just received confirmation. This man's reality is solid. This is a man who cannot be easily bent. This is a man I can trust to hold frame even when I can't. Have you ever noticed how women who date high-status men become more cooperative, more at ease? It's not because those men won the tests. It's because they demonstrated a frame that simply doesn't move. The tests lost their function. But here's the part that challenges everything you thought you knew about relationships. Here's the paradox that resolves this entire dynamic. Now, here's the part they never tell you. Here's the paradox. The way to make her stop testing you is to stop caring whether she tests you or not. You can't maintain frame as a strategy to get her to stop testing. Because the moment you maintain frame to get a response from her, you've collapsed back into her frame. Your reality is contingent on hers. Frame control is not negotiation. It's declaration. Not, if I maintain boundaries, she'll respect me. This is who I am. This is what I tolerate. This is my reality. You're welcome to join it or not. Do you feel the difference? The first approach makes her the center of your reality. You're maintaining boundaries for her reaction. The second makes you the center. You're maintaining boundaries because they're your standards. Here's what this looks like. She goes cold for 3 days. The man's still in her frame. His entire nervous system is oriented toward her silence. He's analyzing. He's wondering what he did wrong. His reality is consumed by her absence. The man in his own frame. He notices. His life continues. He's at the gym. He's working. He's with friends. Her silence is data. It tells him something about compatibility, but it doesn't disrupt his reality. When she resurfaces, he's not relieved, he's not angry, he's not strategizing his response. He eyes unbothered, because his reality wasn't contingent on her presence. Why does genuine indifference attract her while neediness repels her? Because she can feel the difference. Her nervous system knows when your frame is real versus when it's performed. And only real frame triggers the status recognition that generates attraction. Now here's where this gets interesting. When your frame becomes genuinely unshakable, the dynamic inverts. She stops testing you. She starts testing herself against your standards. She's wondering, am I meeting his standards? Am I respecting his time? Is my behavior aligned with the reality he's created? Have you ever seen a woman apologize unprompted for being late to a man she truly respects? That's not control. It's the inverse of control. Her nervous system calibrates to his frame because being inside his frame feels safer than being outside it. And here's the redemption moment. She stops testing you when the tests no longer generate data. You're the same man whether she's cooperative or difficult, present or absent, validating or rejecting. Why would she waste energy testing a man whose reality doesn't change based on her tests? She wouldn't. She stops. Not because you won, but because she found what she was looking for, a man whose reality is more solid than her tests. But here's the part that transforms boys into men. Are you ready? Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Frame control is a lifestyle protocol. It's not a technique you deploy. It's the reality you build before you ever meet her. What are your non-negotiables? Not the things you say you value, the things your behavior proves you value. What will you not compromise, even if it costs you the relationship? Maybe it's, I don't accept last-minute cancellation. Maybe it's, I don't engage with silent treatment. Maybe it's, I don't tolerate disrespect of my time. These need to be yours, not borrowed, not designed to be attractive, genuinely reflective of the man you're becoming. Because when you enforce boundaries that aren't truly yours, you collapse the first time they're tested. You're performing, not living. But when they're real, extensions of your self-respect, you don't defend them. You simply live them. So moment to moment. She's late without texting. The man with frame doesn't sit there waiting. After 15 minutes, he leaves. Not out of anger, because his time is genuinely valuable, and waiting for someone who doesn't respect it violates his standard. When she texts, "Where did you go?" he doesn't lecture. He states, "I waited 15 minutes. I don't stick around when plans aren't honored. Let's reschedule when you're available." No apology, no anger, just clarity. She goes cold for days, then resurfaces. The man with frame addresses it. "You went quiet for 3 days. I don't do the disappearing thing. If you need space, communicate it. But I'm not interested in inconsistent communication." He's not asking her to change. He's declaring what he tolerates and giving her information to choose. Now here's what happens next. Some women adjust. They show up on time. They communicate. They match the standard. Those are the women who are testing to find a man with frame. But some won't adjust. They'll call you controlling, difficult, too demanding. They'll leave. And this is where most men fail, because it seems like frame control cost them the relationship. But here's the truth. A woman who cannot respect your frame would never have stopped testing you. Your accommodation wouldn't have generated respect. It would have generated contempt. And she would have spent months or years testing you, disrespecting you, and slowly eroding your sense of self-worth. You didn't lose her by maintaining frame. You discovered she was incompatible with the reality you're building. And you discovered it in week 2 instead of year 2. This is the incompatibility filter working exactly as designed. Why is that a win? Because you just successfully repelled a low-leverage situation. You traded a high-maintenance, low-respect relationship, one that would have demanded constant accommodation and generated zero gratitude, for the freedom to find a woman who respects the reality you've earned. Think about the resource cost: time, emotional energy, mental bandwidth. A woman who requires constant accommodation is a woman who is draining your resources without reciprocity. She's costing you presence with your friends, progress on your goals, peace in your mind. Frame control is a filter. It repels women who need your frame weak so they can manipulate it. It attracts women who need your frame strong so they can trust it. The women who leave are not losses. Their incompatibilities revealed. And that revelation is a strategic victory because it frees you to invest in compatible women. Which kind of woman do you want in your life? Here's your assignment. For the next week, notice every moment you accommodate behavior that violates your standards. The text you respond to immediately even though she took 6 hours. The plan you rearrange because she changed her mind. The disrespect you ignore. Just notice it. Then ask yourself, why? What am I afraid will happen if I don't? The answer to that question is where your real work begins. Because frame control isn't about controlling her. It's about trusting yourself enough to let her go if she can't meet you in your reality. The man you're becoming doesn't need her validation, doesn't need her approval, doesn't need her presence to know his worth. And when you become that man, when your frame is immovable because it's built on self-respect, not strategy, the dynamic shifts. She'll stop testing, not because you passed, but because you made yourself untestable. Your reality is so clear, so consistent, so undeniable that her tests lost their power. In that moment, she does one of two things. She rises to meet your standard and discovers the version of herself that exists inside your frame. Or she leaves to find a man whose frame she can break. Either way, you win, because you're living in your reality. And you're only interested in a woman who wants to live there too. Now the question is, are you ready? Are you ready to build a frame worth living in? Are you ready to stop defending and start inhabiting? Are you ready to become the kind of man whose standards don't require her agreement? Because the moment you are, everything changes. Not just with her, with everyone. You become unmovable, untestable, free. And that's when you realize the frame you were trying to maintain for her was actually the life you were building for yourself all along.